want some followers? Come.
There's two.
Two? Okay, let's roll. So Danny Catullo, Catullo Prime Meats. Hear me? Good. Give me a thumbs up if you can. Awesome. We're going to be cutting up a whole beef round today. We'll be showing you the different various parts of that round, some cooking methods to be able to cook those parts, different cooking ideas, and just give you really everything from this particular cut of meat from a butcher's perspective. Ask lots of questions, that's what we're here for. We've got a couple guys on camera. We're also going to be uploading this video so you can see it on our Facebook and our Twitter so you can watch later. My name is Danny Catullo. I'm the owner of a third-generation butcher shop in Youngstown, Ohio. We also ship all across the country at CatulloPrimeMeats.com. So I'm going to get right into it. So we got a whole round right here. And what's awesome about this part is that you not only just get the round steaks, which would be the steaks that are cut with the bone, but you can also get various parts within the round that are uniquely awesome inside different cooking. So whether it be a recipe for brujol or eye round or a block roast beef, like that perfect, nice sliced, juicy roast beef that you do with the au jus, like the French dippers, you could be able to get that out of the round. And then from the back end, its fourth part as far as meat is the shank. And when I open that up, you'll be able to see this as far as a piece. The shank makes excellent soup, great beef barley soup, tons of flavor in there. And then of course, not meat-wise, but a great part to eat nonetheless would be this marrow inside the bone. These bones are great for dogs, they're great for their teeth, but they're also great for us. Make excellent sloop, have like fantastic flavor inside the stock, and then if you like to eat marrow off the bone, like I do, or use it to butter your bread, I can show you how to do that using the marrow inside the bone and how a butcher can help you with that. So I'm gonna start cutting, open this guy up, and again, questions, feel free to ask them. Danny Catullo, owner of Catullo Prime Meats. Catullo, we are located in Youngstown, Ohio. I'm gonna be taking off this inside round first. And so this inside round here comes from the top, also known as the top round of the beef. And this round, this whole round right here is located inside the leg of the beef. So this would be like right here. We're talking like the actual butt muscle of the cow. This is what you get here. If this was a pig, this is what we'd be using for ham. We would be boning this out and then smoking it. So when you eat ham, you're actually eating the inside round, like I said, the top round, the eye of the round, and that block roast of the pig. When you cut round steaks, you get all three of those as well. So I'm going to be taking out this inside round. This round has plenty of applications. It's fantastic smoked and done for like big, large parties for roast beef. It also is great in the oven. I like to marinate it in a little bit of olive oil, red wine, garlic, salt and pepper, and then cook it in a little bit of beef stock so it has that nice onion flavor as well. So when we're taking out this inside round, you'll see my goal is to try to leave as much of this other meat from the different muscles onto this side so that we don't take it inside this inside round and not have to trim it off later. This inside round is separated by this easy seam and then a little bit of fat that's located within the inside of the whole round. And it's such an easy cut once you get there. The round really shows how amazing these muscles can be, and they're separated by such a little seam that you're really just using the tip of your knife as you're taking that away. Now this round steak has already been cut so that it can be ready for retail, so that we'd be able to just slice the whole thing if we were cutting that down. But you can actually take this round and expand it out to be able to equal the whole round. Now we take this other part off and make a little bit of a rump roast with it. That is like an old-fashioned roast beef where it has the inside round, the eye of the round, and the block roast all rolled together within a neck. As we've moved as a food culture towards nice, even slices for everybody and things not necessarily falling apart and looking sort of difficult inside the plate as you're serving it, we've moved to want to have each individual cut done themselves. So that's why this roast right here is very popular for caterers and for halls, like when you're getting roast beef at a wedding. So these, you can get nice even slices all the way through, and you're able to accomplish a nice size slice for each person, as opposed to using a lot of the end. So this here, this inside round, is also used for London broils, which is also called a family steak, and those are great on the grill as well. Nice thick cut, marinated, similar to the way that I told you to do the whole roast, with a little bit of red wine, olive oil, some fresh garlic, salt and pepper. The quality of this beef, because it being USDA prime, you're able to get a lot of good marbling. If we can just kind of focus up on there. A lot of good marbling within even a leaner muscle. The cow's going to use its hind more often than it's going to use its front. And one of the main reasons is because when the cow is eating, it's relaxing the top of its body. So the front portion of a cow and a pig and a lamb and a goat is going to use this portion less. This is why the prime ribeye, the chuck roast, that old-fashioned pot roast tends to fall apart, is because it comes from that front of the beef, front of that pig, and that muscle's not used much. So it has a lot of marbling, a lot of ways that it just wants to be slow cooked and falling apart. Now the hind muscle, this cow's using that hind muscle a lot. So this muscle tends to be leaner. So if you get a cow that is not only using its leanest muscle, but also a lower grade of beef that's going to be naturally leaner, a cut like this is not going to be very tender. What we pride ourselves on, one of the cuts that we do, is that our beef, even though the leaner side of it, because of that extra marbling, you can accomplish some really cool stuff and not have to pay a ton of money per pound. So this London broil, like I said, is great marinated. Now let's say you wanted to stuff some of this and make braciole, which is like a traditional Italian recipe. This is the cut that you would be slicing down thin. So if you slice this down on a slicer, you can slice it down nice and thin and then be able to roll it and then stuff it. In fact, I'm gonna give this to one of the guys and have him slice it down, so that as I talk about the other part of the round, I'll also be able to show you how to make braciole. Slice that. Okay, so inside round, we talked about it. Great as a roast beef, also great as a London broil. I'm gonna have it sliced it down so we can show it as braciole, which is also just another name for stuffed steak. It's a fantastic, cool way to be able to use a traditionally leaner cut, stuff it with breadcrumbs, garlic, or I do like thin slices of Genoa salami cut into matchsticks, onions, garlic, breadcrumbs, and roll that up. And you could be able to take something leaner, add that extra juice inside, and then be able to grill it or to stir fry it and then bake it inside sauce, which is the way that my grandmother did it. So this part right here is the bottom part of the round, and that bottom part of the round has two different parts. That has the eye round, which is located right here, and you can see it's separated by a seam before we get to the bottom block roast. This bottom block roast also has a seam located within it, and we'll talk about taking that out or not, and how you're able to, even if that is located inside there, that you're able to use it to just fall apart and not worry about the seam being tough when you're cooking it. Don't chop it up? You sure? I gotta make hamburgers though. You like hamburgers? Yeah, they're pretty good. So again, Danny Catullo, Catullo Prime Meats, live in Youngstown, Ohio. I own a third-generation butcher shop. We're coming to you via Periscope right now. You're also going to be able to see the full video in context as well from beginning to end. So if you just joined in, don't worry about it. You'll be able to check that out on Twitter or on Facebook as well. So I just pulled out the eye around, which you can see is located right next to that bottom block. Sort of pulls out a little bit weird, but it's a nice, easy seam to take out. This roast, like we talked about, comes actually out a little bit further. And this whole eye around normally weighs already trimmed between 4 to 5 pounds. So an eye around is great to use for roasting and making roast beef out of it, especially when you have a smaller family. I'll take that braciole to use later. Thank you. And after it is already trimmed up, it can also make great Philly steak. In fact, it is the cut that most restaurants in most places, especially the ones in Philadelphia, are using to make thin sliced steak fried up with peppers and onions and au jus to make those great sandwiches. Now, the original cut to make Philly steaks was prime ribeyes, but as beef got extremely more expensive than it used to be in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, we stopped using that fattier, marbly steak cut because we were selling them at such a higher price, and most people actually get this Philly steak. I still like using prime ribeyes for traditional Philly steaks, but so that I don't have to spend a ton of money as well, I like to use the chuck eye steaks. They still have that same awesome marbling that a prime ribeye has and are about half the price. So this right here, if we slice these down nice and thin, you can see they can make great sandwich steaks. A lot of times we'll also use this eye around and cut it about like a ½ an inch thick to 3/4, and then run it through a tenderizer and use it for a cube steak or a pepper steak. So those are run through the tenderizer 2 to 3 times. Those are great sort of just browned on top of the stove and then finished with that stock or to make a gravy, some peppers and onions as well. I also like those to make like breakfast steaks too, chicken fried steak. I take that, run it through the tenderizer 2 to 3 times, flour, eggs, panko breadcrumbs, quick brown it on top of the stove in a little bit of oil, and then bake it in the oven. That way I'm not fully submerging and deep frying it. Sort of makes me feel better about eating a chicken fried steak for breakfast. Fry up some eggs and you're good to go. Eye around, fantastic in a couple different ways. One other way to do an eye around is to stuff it like we do the brajol. Just to show you, this is the London broil sliced down nice and thin, which would be that center cut inside round. We take these and stuff them and then roll them all the way. And then as they're stuffed, we'll then take that, brown it on top of the stove, and then finish it off in sauce. A lot of times my grandma would brown these on top of the stove and then actually take the sauce before it was done. So it would be a little watery because it was just the strained tomatoes, a little bit of paste, the fresh herbs, garlic, and onions inside the sauce, and it wouldn't be fully thickened yet, but she actually preferred that so that when she cooked this brajol, it would soak up that moisture as well. Again, a leaner cut. It would soak up that moisture so that it would have tons of that sauce flavor inside as well. So this eye around, you can sort of accomplish that same stuffed meat dish, and it can look really cool as far as something to use for the plate presentation. So this eye around, I'm just going to show you one way that we also prepare for our customers to be able to make at home. And that is, we'll completely trim it. And I'll trim most of it. I won't take all the fat off for time purposes as well. After we completely trim it, we are then going to butterfly it open like a book so that you can be able to not only stuff it with your favorite ingredients. I talked about earlier Genoa salami, fresh garlic and onion, and breadcrumbs and olive oil. Another one of my favorites for the eye around is fresh spinach, feta cheese, and a touch of olive oil. And I like to put roasted tomatoes in there as well. And the beef really holds it inside so that those ingredients can be able to infuse the whole piece of beef with that flavor. So after we have this eye around trimmed out and ready to go, one of the things that's nice to have a sharp knife handy is that we're going to open this up. Now I don't want to actually cut this in half and then just open it up straight. I want to be able to, after it's folded together, it to look just like this eye around, but have that stuffing inside. And what I'm trying to accomplish is for that dinner party, when I make my slices, similar to a turducken or a turducken roll, I want to be able to see all the cool layers in between. So I'm actually going to just do this about 1/8 of an inch, a touch more, all the way down to open up that first slice. And as I open up that first slice, I'm gonna take that thicker end, and then I'm gonna keep on going about 1/8 of an inch all the way. Now again, we're using eye around, which comes from that hind of the beef, which is a little bit leaner than everything that comes from the front. So this is a type of cut that normally takes a little bit of pounding. We'll take like that mallet, that old-fashioned wooden mallet, to pound it down a little bit so that it can tenderize it. But like I talked earlier, because of the high quality of beef that we're not only able to get from our local farmers, which do a fantastic job, but also our specifications so that it can fit inside of our marbling content, we're able to exude some pretty cool steak flavors out of cuts that are normally lean. So I'm gonna open this guy up nice. I would normally take a nice mallet and whack it down just a little bit to be able to open it. If you cook this just directly on the grill, it would not have a ton of flavor because it would be pretty lean. And also, I would worry about the juices running. So being it this thick, there was a lot of cut open inside the muscle, so there would be a lot of places for that juice to sort of run off and go. That's not what we're gonna do though. We're gonna stuff this guy back and then roll him back inside of an eye of a round so that you could be able to see the cool layers. Super easy to make, something cool to have for dinner. You can do this, or we can do this with like a pork loin. I mean, you're talking about an awesome, innovative dish to have for a dinner party and not have to spend an arm and a leg on it. Okay, so eye round, inside round that we use for brujol. Got this nice fat over here that we can use for some good grinds. Talk about the last two muscles and then also that wonderful bone that's holding it all together. So we're left with this bottom block roast, which is starting to gain a lot of popularity within the last couple years into food culture. One of the reasons is it's awesome and it has great, fantastic flavor. And when cut correctly away from the seam, you don't have to worry about tough tendons being located inside that muscle that would be chewy when you're eating roast beef. So, unlike this huge inside round, because you're most likely not going to have 20 people over for dinner every night, you'd like to be able to make roast beef for your family of 4 to 6. Great, let's pick out a nice center cut block roast. Still gonna have that fantastic flavor, but also not fall apart. You're not looking for pulled beef when you're making this dish. You want to slice it nice and thin, be able to exude all that beef stock juices inside. Great flavor. So I'm gonna pull off this marrow bone. And again, we'll talk about this guy as soon as I'm done. The marrow bone, located inside of the round, has the most marrow, more marrow than inside of the shank. And again, one of the reasons is because it needs lots of marrow, because it needs lots of nutrients, because it's always using these muscles. Those cows and pigs are just like we say, when we eat like a cow or eat like a pig, that is exactly what they're trying to do. They are accomplishing trying to eat as much as possible. And what's great about our farmers is that we know they are eating a lot of what we would like those cows to eat, which is nice, healthy food. So, we got this beautiful block roast. Located on the back end is that beef shank that we talked about earlier. Those are very lean. This muscle is extremely lean. But it's fantastic for braising and also soups as well. I like to use it for like my beef barley soup, my beef vegetable soup, so I don't have to pay for a chuck roast that's coming from the front of the beef, something center cut. I would prefer to use a beef shank, whether it be boneless or bone-in. The bone-in beef shanks, which are coming from either the end of this hind or also the front right here, that's where we get like our ossobuco of veal. Those bone-in beef shanks, when you cut those down about 1.5 inches, those are great because you not only get the shank meat, which is awesome, but you also get that marrow bone as well for flavor. So I'll pull this shank guy out right now. Again, my name's Danny Catullo. Thank you so much for watching. We're a butcher shop in Youngstown, Ohio. We ship all over the country, CatulloPrimeats.com. And I teach these classes locally and also sometimes all over the country, usually talking about cooking coming from a butcher's perspective. That's that beautiful shank that we talked about. I'll show you the center cut right now. Heck, I have it open. We'll pivot a little bit here. Lean muscle, right? But good for soup. You want to use something that has flavor for soup, but you don't mind it being a lean muscle because you need something that's going to hold up for a long time as you're cooking the soup and infusing all the flavors from the stock and the ingredients that you put inside. If you put something inside the soup that is just going to fall apart and shred, I mean, that's not my favorite chicken soup, is when it's already shredded up and I can't find like nice chunky pieces of chicken. That's why we want to use the soup hen, which is the tougher muscle inside the breast for that soup. Same concept when we're talking about beef or we're talking about pork. All right, so we have this beautiful block roast here. I talked about that seam that we feel pretty proud of ourselves that we get rid of. This is the one right here and another one right here. We want to be able to get rid of that stuff so that we can have a nice center cut roast. Take off this beautiful layer of fat. Start getting this roast center cut. First time I ever did a demo, I was in college at Ohio State, and I cut up a whole chicken for like how-to class where we had to explain the directions. It was like an oral inter class or something like that for communication. And I, of course, cut my finger, never forgot it, and make sure that I don't do it again because you can't be the expert if you're cutting your finger. So we're gonna take this seam off. Make this block roast nice, center cut, and gorgeous. Okay, so block roast, again, fantastic for roast beef. Slice that down thin, cook it in that au jus with the beef stock. I like to go 2 cups of beef stock for every 1 cup of red wine. So depending on how big of a roast that you have, and I like to make sure that it at least covers 1.5 inches of the bottom of the pan. Then I'll cut up an onion, maybe quarter it, throw that in there, a couple cloves of garlic, salt, pepper, a little bit of olive oil on the outside. The reason why you want to still have a little bit of olive oil on the top of the roast is not just to help it protect it because you don't have a ton of fat, but it'll also help crisp it and create almost a sear zone inside that roast beef so that all the flavors can be able to lock in there. So unlike like a turkey that you're looking to brown the skin on the way out, so you take your lid off or you take your piece of foil off to make sure the skin gets brown before you serve it, you actually want to have the lid off of your roast beef, especially your block roast, before you start cooking it. That way you can get a nice brown on the outside, and when you're done, you're going to be able to slice thin and all those juices are going to stay within. Same concept of cooking a steak that I always tell our customers is you want to make sure that you let it rest before you cut into it. I know it looks juicy, it looks amazing, just pay good money for a great steak or a roast, and you want to start eating it. But the moment that you start opening this up before it's rested fully, you're letting the juices that we're going to marinate inside the roast escape. We don't want to see those escape. We want to see those cook inside here. Finish it off. That's why we're pulling it out. Even if you want that roast to be medium, to pull it out at medium rare temp, about 140 degrees, or if you want it medium rare, to pull it out at about 125, it will raise the next 10 to 15 minutes as you're letting it rest. I prefer to let my roast beef rest about 20 to 30 minutes, depending on the size. My steak's about 10 to 15. I mean, you want to eat them hot. I completely understand that. But you don't want to lose all that flavor that you help create by creating that sear zone. So just to show you what the center cut roast would look like and that good marbling in, because as you can tell, this round has been aged. That's why you'll see some of the dark spots on it. Those aren't bad. They're not unhealthy. You'll probably see them sometimes as your roast is inside of your fridge for maybe a couple days. When we put them out, we take that brown off because we just want to show the center cut to our customers. This is what we'd be showing to our customers so they can be able to see. And that is that nice, gorgeous marbling fat right there. So in a block roast, we want to leave a little bit of this bottom fat. And one of the reasons is it's going to go into the pan that way. So that fat is going to help with the stock to be able to create some flavor from the roast beef. This leaner part, that's why we're coating it in a little bit of olive oil. So again, 1.5 inches at the bottom of the pan, beef stock and red wine with a 2-to-1 mixture, 2-to-1 beef stock to red wine, and then you want to be able to have a little bit of olive oil and seasoning on top. So gorgeous piece. Talk about the marrow bone and we'll finish up. So this marrow bone is sort of a butcher's paradise right here. We like to use these to make great stocks and soups. They're fantastic as you cut them down. We usually cut them like inch and a half pieces so that they can be able to fit in the pot, and then also open up the marrow so that you can be able to get that to make that gelatin for a beautiful stock. So we also now cut these for restaurants and for people. We cut them long ways as well. And when we cut them long ways, coming down this way, we're able to open them up so that we can have marrow on both sides. A lot of people will roast these marrow bones. They'll put some fresh herbs, salt and pepper, some whatever seasonings they might be looking at. I like to do mine with a touch of saffron, tarragon, salt, pepper, and garlic. But you can accomplish great flavors without having the need of those particular herbs. After the marrow is cooked, you can spread that on like a nice toasted crostini. I like to do something special with mine. I like to open it up and I like to roast the marrow bones or grill them. I'll take the marrow outside and then I'll use that to butter bread. I like to use the pretzel bread from a local baker here, from the Bread Chef. I take the bread, I butter it with the marrow that's already been herbed up and seasoned, and then I grill the bread. And when you do that, instead of using butter, you're actually using the natural butter of the beef. Tons of flavor, really meshes well with that, that pretzel bread. And then I like to then take fresh ragout and honey and mix that like half and half inside of a mason jar and serve that on the side to be able to take that bone marrow glazed pretzel bread that's grilled inside of the ragout and honey. So, guilty pleasure, not gonna lie. So Danny Catullo from Catullo Prime Meats, thank you for watching. That's me cutting up a whole round into its various parts. We hope to be doing more of these periscopes, especially on Saturdays. If you're in the Youngstown area, come live and have fun with me here and talk about it, especially after. Or if you want to watch us, you do it via Periscope and check on our Facebook and Twitter to be able to see the whole video. Thank you for watching.